Hi everybody. I am going to be posting some of the questions and answers for the reflective questions for week 4 and week 5. It looks like we didn't have any for week 6. Hopefully you guys' workshops are coming along okay. Mine is hopefully coming along. I've noticed the more I'm reading in the text how it applies to the workshop, and I kind of wish I would have read everything before. Because I'm starting to notice more and more how I could have used those things, or I still can, but when I was writing it. But it's just all starting to come together for me now as far as that goes. But here's some thoughts that I had for this week. On number 4 on the reflective questions, it says, the handbook for CES teachers and leaders discusses the role of the Holy Ghost in learning, especially gospel learning, when teaching family life education. And educators will generally be working with people that are not LDS. And is it necessary to have the Holy Ghost there? That's essentially what it asks. And the Holy Ghost always can play a role in the learning process. It should always play a learning role in the learning process, no matter where we're at. And we all can have the Holy Ghost, and we should try to invite it wherever we're at and with whoever we're teaching. It's really, really important. It's the best teacher that there is. So that is a definite yes. Number 5 says, share one specific thought you had from reading the handbook for CES teachers and leaders that you want to incorporate in your teaching. One thing that really hit me, it said, quote, in some cases, the Spirit may touch a student's mind or heart long after the class is over. And I just need to remember that if it feels like I am not getting through, to don't feel like I need to give up or that I'm not, because a lot of these things will be, these thoughts or these things that we teach them will be brought to their remembrance later. Just like when we talk to our kids and we explain things to them, or we're worried about things, they don't necessarily, they listen, they don't necessarily take the ideas right then, but later they do affect them. And so that's important to remember, so that as we're teaching someone, if they act like they're not listening, they probably are. They're just bookmarking it for later. Okay. In chapter 5, one of the questions is, as taught in chapter 5, building relationships is a prelude to effective education. So what little things can or will you realistically do to build a rapport and establish a relationship with your participants for your workshops or your family relations programs, if that's what you're doing? Since I don't know the people that are coming for sure, the way I'm marketing it, I don't know exactly who's going to show up, so I can't really build a rapport with them before, but I can pass out name tags and have everyone introduce one another and tell a little bit about each other. Mine aren't going to be huge workshops, so if there's 5 to 10 people in each one, that's realistic to be able to have everyone introduce themselves and tell a little bit about each other. Most likely you have taught in some setting before, whether it be through educational training, missionary, church setting, etc. What have you learned about involving others in a discussion? I think it's important to involve others and to ask what their experiences are. It's also very important, though, to stay within the time frame and stay on task and stay on topic. I'm sure all of you have had some kind of experience with that. I know I have, teaching Relief Society, or my husband teaches or has taught gospel doctrine for many years, and it's important to keep on task. It's kind of a balance between making sure people feel welcome and having them, obviously share their experiences, but then not getting it too far off. Okay, based on what you know about yourself from previous teaching experiences, what mistakes, if not careful, are you likely to make in the future? One of the things I thought about is I have a tendency to talk when people are not talking. So when there's silence, I guess I feel like, it's by awkward silence, I guess, and I don't really want to deal with that. So I start talking. It's important to not do that, because the Spirit doesn't really have a chance to seep into the hearts and minds of the students and give them a minute to reflect and to think about the things they may want to share. So that's one thing I really need to work on and do better with. Okay, so in week 5, there was some questions that I want to go over. From the reading assignment, what ideas about teaching stood out to me? stood out to you. The reading talked about how discussion invites active involvement in the learning process, and it allows learners to clarify their thinking through many comments of others. And some ideas that stood out for me were to pose a thought-provoking problem or statement or question right when the class starts. And the reading also recommended respectful responses from the presenter to encourage future responses. So if we're not giving them input, or not input, but if we're not acknowledging the things that they have to share, they may not want really, someone else sitting beside them may not want to share. So that's important to do. What could you do to improve the use of personal narratives or stories in your teaching? I could think of personal narratives in my own life and apply them. I have done that before, and that's really effective. It helps to make a concrete connection between the subject matter and the example from someone's life. Stories have an emotional quality that reach the heart of the participants. So I think stories are super, super important. Okay, what is meant by skilled dialogue? Actually, I'm not going to do that one because we don't have that much more time. Sorry. Okay. So we need to use faith-promoting stories in the scriptures and from church history hymns. It talks, oh, sorry, I'll read the question. What can you do to invite and keep the Spirit with you as you plan and teach family life education? So using faith-promoting stories from the scriptures and from church history are a great way to invite and keep the Spirit. Hymns are a great way to invite and keep the Spirit as well. Obviously, it depends on where you're teaching and what you're doing, but hymns are a great way to do that. The most important thing to me, obviously, is to pray and to think about the people that you're going to be teaching and trying to help. What are their needs? Because everyone's specific, even different cultures, and it talks a lot about that. And I don't really have time to go into that, but each culture is different than the other. All cultures are different, and so we need to think about and pray about how we can most effectively reach different people and find answers also through the scriptures. So, okay, I guess my time is up, and hopefully everything's going okay with everybody else, and have a good day. Bye-bye.